Was your budget now set, or are you still?
Yeah, we're set.
As bad as it appeared?
Yeah. Yeah, which we'll talk about when this thing's over a little bit. All right.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Well, because I don't have enough.
Yeah, that's fine.
For somebody to hear him, he has to speak into a mic.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay. That'll get the nerves up. All right. Rebecca Holmes-Lewis, an Executive Officer of Hearings and Release and the Supervised Release Board. We're here today to review Mr. Eric Cascella, who's present with us at the Minnesota Department of Corrections Central Office in St. Paul. Mr. Cascella also has his advocate, Mr. Matthew Emerson, participating today. And in addition, I know that we have Shannon Marks, his work release agent here. And also here with me at the Minnesota Department of Corrections Central Office is our Commissioner and Chair of the Board, Mr. Paul Schnell. And board members, Andrew Larson is on the screen behind you. So if you hear somebody speak, make sure you know that he's up there as one of the board members. We have juvenile expert member, Jody Nelson, thank you, and juvenile expert member Don Strufert, along with member Ms. Jo Earhart and Ms. Cheryl Ramstad.
Good afternoon.
Our records indicate that on August 5th of 1990, the body of Nicole Johnson was found in her apartment in Crystal, Minnesota. She had been killed by multiple stab wounds, and a large knife was found impaled in her chest area. The investigation did not result in finding the person responsible initially, but after 3 years, police interviewed Eric Cascella in April of 1993. He stated at the time of the murder he was staying in an apartment 2 doors down from the victim, and that he knew her from a casual contact. He told police that on the morning of August 5th of 1990, he entered her apartment by climbing onto her balcony and entering through the balcony door. He said he was in the apartment for a period of time and took a knife from the kitchen and decided to murder the victim. He told police he stabbed her repeatedly with the knife. On April 4th of 1994, Eric William Cascella was sentenced to life imprisonment, a 30-year minimum sentence, by Hennepin County District Court after having been found guilty of first-degree murder. Due to new legislation regarding individuals who were juveniles at the time of their offense, Mr. Cascella now has the opportunity to be reviewed by the Supervised Release Board after serving a minimum of 15 years incarceration. Mr. Cascella has been reviewed 3 times by a commissioner and advisory panel. He was continued each time for a future review. During the continuance periods, he was granted the opportunity to transition to minimum custody and then to the work release program. Mr. Cascella has been in the work release program for 1 year. Mr. Cascella has served a total of approximately 32 years of incarceration and became eligible for parole consideration on his life sentence on April 13th of 2023. Today's review by the board represents Mr. Cascella's 4th review of his life sentence and 1st by the Supervised Release Board. His 15-year minimum eligibility date is April 12th, 2008. Thank you. I turn this matter over to the board. Commissioner?
Good afternoon. How are you doing? Good. You have to use your mic when we talk. Yeah. You have, normally we would make you sing the national anthem first, but we're gonna waive that today. So how this has been a process. I know you and I and some of the other folks here have had a chance to meet multiple times over the last several years, 6 years or so. How does it feel to be where you are today?
I'm very grateful. I apologize for this. Very grateful.
Can you use your mic?
You gotta hold your mic up there so we can hear you.
I'm very grateful for the opportunity. It's definitely been a process, and I'm just committed to continuing to doing the things that I'm doing, and do them diligently. And with every attempt and process, I'm learning things, new things against old things as well. So yeah, it's definitely been a process.
You've done, just very well. I think as I read through, your time in work release and I think your transition, probably, I'm sure you would have preferred it to be quicker than it was, right? But I think one of the things I really would say I appreciate about you is that you have taken advantage of everything to maximize and squeeze out the most benefit along the way, and I think that speaks highly of you over the course of that time. And despite the natural frustration you may feel about being eligible, at the same time you've dug deep and done what you've needed to do to get where you are today. Can you just talk a little bit about what some of the learning and lessons have been in the last year, in particular on work release, number one, and number two, just kind of walk through your release plan.
So to start it off, I have a tremendous support group, and it was instrumental in my transitioning. And
many of them are here today, I presume.
Yes, and some are still coming.
Oh, cool! Yeah, because we're early.
Yep.
So they may just get here to celebrate with you. Who knows? We'll see.
So yeah, it's the process was again, like you said, that it was quick. I felt like I'm ready and I wanted to go. Let's hit the ground running. It took me a little while to kind of just slow things down and focus on multitasking was a huge thing. I had a problem stuck with, I wanted to do something or something had to get done. I would focus on that. So being able to multitask was a little bit of a process for me. And even simple things. I had an encounter with a vehicle at some point where it went out on me on a 169 exit ramp. And I had no idea what to do. I knew, well, actually the only thing I knew I could do was call Matt. And he helped me out, and it was just so quick, so simple and everything, but it was just a lot of anxiety and stuff.
Sorry to interrupt, but we had to get him an Uber from 1 mile away from his work from the exit ramp, and then I had one of my friends come pick up the car and pull it off the exit ramp, and those types of complicated situations after not driving in 30 years.
A big change, right?
Yeah. And, so just going through these things, and as I encountered situations, I would reach out to either my case manager, family. I would reach out to Matt. I did this on a regular basis, and it made everything so much easier. One last thing, I just think it's kind of funny to think about now. At the time, I wasn't. So I was so worried about pumping gas in my car. Things changed. So I asked Matt, I'm like, hey, let's stop at a gas station so I could put the gas in there and see how I would do this. Not a problem. I seen it. It looked simple enough. And I was like, okay. So next time I was getting gas coming back from work, it was 5 a.m. So we stopped at a place, and it was a night place. It was closed, so there was nobody there. Used my debit card, and I couldn't open the gas tank. So I was just like, I'm trying to pry it open, and I'm looking for a lever in the car. I couldn't find it, so I had to call Matt at 5 a.m.
He doesn't mind. He doesn't mind waking him up.
So he told me, he said, just push on it. So I pushed on it, and sure enough, it opened up. And I talked to Matt later on, and I wanted to make sure I thanked him. And he's like, I thought that was a dream. So, but yeah, I definitely leaned on a lot of my support to get me through the littler things. I'm not scared to ask the questions or, listen to people and adjust my mindset and my thoughts to what needs to get done. Like I said, I have a determination to make sure that I'm as successful as I am or can be, and even more so. So
you've also, I think, the record shows, kind of been, engaging around, your faith community involvement and that kind of stuff. Has that been an important part of this transition for you?
absolutely it has. I meet with a men's group on Wednesday nights, faith-based. I try to get to a breakfast that they have every third Saturday of the month. I'm in constant contact with some of my mentors in that area. And yeah, they've just been great, whether it be helping me find employment, transportation, or housing, or whatever I need, to even just talk about processing other things that I encounter. It's invaluable.
And I think I cut you off before I asked you to kind of talk a little bit about your release plan and just and what that support network and how you would use your support network as you go forward.
So I've definitely been utilizing as much of that as I can since I've even been at the halfway house. I do have an apartment already set up. I have, a great job. I've been saving the money. I talk over future, whether it be investments or just things that I got to buy, whether it be another car or a new car, something more, what's the word?
Reliable.
Thank you. Something more reliable. Yeah, I think that if I just continue doing the things that I'm doing now, I don't got a lot of stuff on my plate. I have the support groups and stuff that I go to, and just continue taking these things slow. I think that's important. It provides me a lot of grounding each week. So it's just continuing to do the things that I'm doing, I guess, that I've already been doing. Like I said, saving the money, continue with my job, and just taking things one day at a time.
Last question for me, and then we'll open it up to other board members here and hear from Mr. Emerson as well. But what, just in terms of putting this in context of why we're here and what is it that you feel going forward you need to do in order to continue to account for the life that you took? What does that look like for you, and what is the obligation you feel you have going forward because of that?
I know that there's nothing I could do that would even compare with what I did as far as fixing or anything of that nature. I try to stay involved with helping others as much as I can, to be the best person I can. I am volunteering to assist with Matt and some of the things that he's doing. I value the things that he's helped me with, and I just want to continue helping others as much as I can in that transition from prison. I'd like to go back into the prisons and speak, hopefully with your blessing at some point, and just try to help guys get away from this path that may lead to something before it does. And I just continue to believe that I can make a difference, and I do. So I just want to keep doing that. And whatever avenues open up for me in that regards, I'm fully ready to embrace, and just keep helping wherever I can.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate, as we've talked about before during some of our meetings, the obligation is for you to, to live your best life. And part of that is in service to other people as well. And I appreciate the fact that you've been doing that. And I think you have been, quite thoughtful in terms of this transition over the last 5 or 6 years then since you and I have met each other through this process. Maybe you just open it up to Matt, and then we can let the board ask questions of either of you, both of you, whatever it looks. Matt, you want to just talk a little bit about what you've seen in terms of Eric's transition and what you know of him, and
I'm going to set my notepad down for a moment.
Yeah.
I appreciate the opportunity to advocate on Eric's behalf. I've known Eric since 2016. When I was in the Moose Lake Prison Garment Shop, I had just got a job at 50 cents an hour. And I was asking some of the people from the father support group I attended, well, who do I talk to around here to, get ahead or to be a part of this garment shop movement? And they said, well, Eric is no nonsense. So don't talk to Eric unless if you're serious about working in this garment shop. And so Eric ran the cutting table for how many years? 5 years, yeah. And he taught people how to use the digitizer and things like that. And so it was amazing during my incarceration, seeing Eric just be an example. He wasn't a part of the guys that were running in and trying to stop a bunch of stuff from happening. But if you wanted to be around somebody that was safe, that was time you could spend with Eric inside incarceration. I can testify to that. Upon my release, I reached back into the prison to communicate with Eric ongoingly about issues that were going on in the community and what his lived experience of being in prison so long, how he could affect that. And he always gave very sound advice that was meaningful at the time, whether that was, should I provide housing or not, right? And it was an advisory type of engagement, and we went through that process for many years. And then Eric got to the point where he was actually on his way to the streets and free. And the table flipped over, right? And he was like, hey, what's going on here? And that was such a privilege to take this person that was a mentor and actually help him in that regard. And through that process, it was just amazing because, and I've had conversations with the commissioner about this, it's like I think of Eric as somebody that he's just supposed to be somebody that should help because he's so experienced, 30 years of doing everything inside the institution. Somebody that just gets in there, they have no idea what's going on, and Eric can help them. But then once he got to the real world, he needed so much help. I was thinking the first day he could just go get a job because he's really qualified and he's incredibly intelligent. And I had to, it was one of the first cases I had to really rewind my tape and start at the beginning with onboarding him right, into my organization's database, right? And it just to do that, which I normally do with people that are way further in the beginning of their process, was a humbling experience for me. But Eric was so grateful and so patient, and as a person that advocates for a lot of people and has people like Eric on the explaining people why you should choose the system, to put him on the other side of the table for a little while was just a surreal experience. And it was amazing because he was so punctual. He's the first client that I said, well, we can't do it Monday. Okay. Then Eric goes, well, how about Wednesday? Wednesday at 9:00. Will that work for you? Right. And I don't get that. I don't ever get that. And so it was just so nice that he gave me a gift of being a client that really wanted to participate in scheduling. Right. And I'm just so great. I can't just repeat how much I'm so grateful for that. And then Eric found every organization that could help him. He found the Community Action Partnership employment people who got him a bus card. And so he wasn't complaining about me not being able to give him a ride on Tuesday. He said, okay, well, I don't know how to take the bus. And he got lost and he didn't know how to call me. But at the same time, he wasn't mad at me and he didn't make me feel like I was the one responsible for him getting lost. He said, I'm just never going on that bus again. I'll take the other bus, but I don't want to take that bus anymore. And I think that those really speak to his rehabilitation in this matter, and extreme patience dealing with things. I think, I remember it was like a 2-hour conversation about a phone, how to get a phone, what a phone is, and it's just such a privilege to be a part of that as an advocate in society today. And I think that's a sufficient amount to. Well, I guess there's a couple things I want to touch on. Now, he has had an ankle monitor for 4 years and hasn't had any errors on the ankle monitor process for the past 4 years. And I also just want to echo again how challenging it is for being incarcerated as early as 19, and then coming out and being after 30 years of institutionalized incarceration. I think he's done an amazing job in the deinstitutionalization process. And so that's why I'll leave it.
Good, thank you, and thanks for being a supporter, and I really appreciate the juxtaposition of at one time seeing Eric as you were mentored by him, and now you've been able to help do that, and I think that's one of the things that I admire about you, Matt, and I appreciate you being here today in support of Eric. With that, I would open the floor to board members for any questions.
Mr. Costello, what do you anticipate to be your biggest hurdle? It sounds like you've had a fair amount of freedom up to this point and have made transitions being on the outside in many respects, but what do you anticipate to be the hurdles ahead?
All I can say is that as far as like reverting back to the gas tank, I don't see anything to be a hurdle. I have a great support network. I don't know what's going to be thrown in my direction. I don't know what's going to happen. But I know that if I do come across hurdles, I have a plethora of people that can help me. I guess the thought of just going through technology, maybe. Again, I can contact, whether it be my cousin to help me with my phone or whatever it is. If I need some help with, a car, I have a friend of mine that a mentor, if I want to do some investing of some sort. So though I do know that, obviously we're all going to have hurdles, whether it be car trouble, whatever it is, housing. At the moment, I'm looking for a job. It's kind of a hurdle, but I'm not dissuaded from anything. I'm going to keep putting in job applications. I'll keep doing interviews. And again, like I said, I don't foresee any major hurdles, but again, if I got to open up a gas tank again, I'm always going to push first.
Yeah. Can I ask a question related to that? Just how do you feel about being alone? And I ask this because you have spent 30 years in prison, which has a lot of people around. You've been then in work release and a lot of people around. Is that a weird feeling to think about going to that apartment in Chaska and on the one hand, being alone? I'm sure there may be some relief in that and probably maybe even a little bit of awkwardness in that.
It is funny you say that. So when I got the apartment in Chaska and I was able to go out there, that first day I felt like it wasn't even my place. I had a hard time sitting down, walked around a lot. But going over there repeatedly and stuff, and it becomes more of a home. So I definitely got used to it. I did pick up on that kind of right away when I got there. I was just like, it did feel weird and uncomfortable. But again, talking it over with some people and family and stuff, it just became, so much easier. And I did it more and more, and now it's not so weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely something that I picked up on right away. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Anybody else?
Comment and 2 questions, if I may.
Yep.
You 2 guys are probably one of the best resources I've experienced in this chair. What success maybe looks like, how to go about doing it. Thank you. You guys are there. So I'm asking for 2 questions. First one, you've been through the old process where you talked with the commissioner and his advisory board, and you're some of the first ones through this new process. Any insights you can offer us about this new process? Pluses and minuses, or how does it sit from your perspective?
For me, I definitely felt that the personal aspect is much better than the video camera aspect of it. I think that I guess I feel personally a little more dignity in this process. Yeah, I think it is. It's just much better. I think with so many people in the room on the video camera and stuff, not knowing, just going in there, getting out, and still in the prison setting, it just created a lot of maybe intimidation on my aspect or on my part as being, like, oh my goodness. I definitely wasn't used to formal settings, for such a long time, and then having to do that is definitely intimidating. And it was hard to keep my thoughts focused. But this is much more comfortable for me. And yeah, like I said, I feel like I have more dignity in this room than before for me.
So I only think I've been through this process as an advocate, whether it's by Zoom or by phone. And like I alluded to in my earlier comments, I'm so lucky to have had Eric be so competent. And I'm looking at his uncle over here who had, he's got this, he did a benefit polar plunge, and Eric had the bracelet on. So I jumped in the polar plunge at Lake Geneva in Roseville instead of Eric. It was so funny, because it's like, well, what are you going to do? It's a polar plunge and somebody's got to get it. So, and I just think about this advocating process and some of the other instances where I was in the public setting or instances where I was advocating over the phone, and how this in-person situation, there's no service that does it more justice, but also there's a lot of people in this process that do not have, just to transparently say, do not have the overwhelming support system that Eric has cultivated over the last 30 years in the way that it specifically needs to function in order to address the concerns and needs of this board. It could be the same amount of support, but if it does not have the same sophistication of function to address the concerns and needs of the board, then it will fail in this setting, and also in many societal settings as well. And so I think that that's really critical. And what advice do you give? There is no advice you can give to that, right? But at the same time, it is worth calling out. And it's very nice from my experience. I understand the setting, and so I can share some of that calmness with Eric as we go through this. I think it reflects, and that's very critical too in these settings. It looks like a giant mountain from far away, and today it's a table. So that's how I feel.
Second question. Can you speak a little bit to your connection with victims or survivors? How might they be advocates or promote the healing process? Or what do you need from victims or survivors?
That's a hard thing for me to answer.
Well, I think it's important that victims are included. I think I want to tip my hat to Rebecca Holmes's statement in the beginning to remember how this situation came about. I think that that's very important. I remember Eric disclosing years ago the situation that occurred, and I can appreciate how accurate Eric's description was to the description Rebecca Holmes gave in comparison to other cases that I've been involved in. I think that's a huge attribute, and I can speak to that. Additionally, there is a place at this table, even though we do not have a victim here today, there is a place at this table for victims. And this is a safe place for victims and families of people incarcerated who are affected by incarceration greatly, can come to one place together and share space together, as divided as that may be. I think that's very important as well. Additionally, I think there's a lot of victims that that just have never had the opportunity to heal. I think utilizing the victim impact statement process just for individuals that are involved in the system, just to practice the victim impact dialogue is a huge stepping stone. I know that Eric was very open and transparent. Hey, I'm sorry, I did this thing. And that's, in a lot of situations, not an easy thing for folks to do. And so I think that that's the excellent, it's always going to be the step one. And what the next steps after that look like, vary on case.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, Eric, I did have a question for you. Right behind you. So you used a word earlier, grounding, and it's the same word that you used multiple times in the letter that you submitted to the board.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just elaborate? So when you use that word grounding, like what does that mean, and why is that something? What is the value in that for you? Like I'm just, it's a curiosity. Like, and I made a note. Like I want to ask him about grounding. Like, what do you mean by that?
So just so I work 3 12-hour shifts. I'm at work. So during that time, it becomes pretty fast. I go to work, I come back, I sleep, I get ready, and I go back to work. So I just want to make sure that I'm being mindful of the other things that I need to do other than just go to work. I go to these groups and stuff for, not only just to support, but just to bring calmness to my body and just being able to think about the things that I need to do. I listen to the feedback, I give feedback, and it just helps me stay mindful of where I want to go, what I want to do, what I need to do, and keeps things focused for me. I don't want to each week just have so many things that happen, and then I start losing focus of one thing, and 2 weeks later, now it's, why didn't I take care of that before? So I'm just always trying to be mindful, and I think that the weekly check-in with myself and with the groups that I go to, it does that. It allows me to just stay in the moment, focus on what I need to do today, tomorrow, and then what I can start working for in the future and stuff. So it just really keeps my mind slowing down.
Nice. All right, appreciate that clarification.
Yep.
Anything else? Since I had have worked with Eric a little bit over the past little while, and I'm gonna make a motion if that's all right. And I would move that we put Eric on phase 2 work release, and that can be arranged as quickly as the agent in Portland can work out whatever that's going to look like. And that we would set a parole date of July 31st, I don't know what day of the week that is, but roughly end of July.
End of July, did you
July
say?
31 or July 30th. It would
Okay.
be 60 days roughly to get the agent assignment done and that kind of stuff. But he can move to phase 2 work release. That'd be subject to the terms and conditions of supervised ISR first, in accordance with the standard kind of protocols for transitioning person. And you've certainly talked to a number of the guys who are going through that and anticipate you'll have any problem with that. And then just continue doing the stuff that you're doing, the things that are grounding, as was pointed out, that as you described, using that support system as needed, Matt and others, and also paying it forward to participation in that lifer group, and when the time is right, I'll assist with getting you into the facilities with other lifers in the life group and so forth, and go.
Commissioner, we lost audio.
There's no.
Oh, yours now. So did you hear the motion?
Yes, I did hear the motion. 60-day or work release phase 2, set the parole date out 60 days. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So now we're up for your vote to the motion.
Yes.
All right. Board Member Ramstead.
Yes.
Board Member Nelson.
Yes.
Board Member Struford.
Yes.
Schnell votes yes. Your path forward is set. Any questions? Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate it, as Board Member Struford pointed out, this, the work that you two are doing together and can do for others is important and helpful. So luck to you, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you at some of the lifer events, and we'll go from there.
And congratulations on your new appointment.
Yeah. All right.
Eric will work with your work release agent. We'll get you hooked up with another agent and keep those communications going with your agent so they understand everything you're doing and will be doing. If there's any questions along the way, I'm available.
All right. Thank you very much. Good luck.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You guys take care.
Congratulations, Eric.
A couple of items of business we have to just do before we go.
Congratulations, service.
I see.
Part of it. Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
No.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we have a couple of items of board business to accomplish before we go. Folks, if we can have you maybe move into the hallway if we try and wrap up. So just by way of new business, I just wanted to make sure the board was aware of there's a lot of work being done right now with the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee did pass the budget for the Department of Corrections. did pass, and it has been signed into law. There's some substantial changes that are coming. You may have heard or read about the fact that part of the budgetary changes was a phased closure of the Stillwater Correctional Facility over the next 4 years. So there's a lot of planning that's going on around this front. There will be a number of fairly significant number of layoffs in the course of this. That it's always tough in this transition. Statutes around the Stillwater closure do require that a lot of work is done to move people in accordance with plans and what their needs are. So there is a process that's being developed for that as we speak. There is, we've been looking at all areas. Obviously, when the Supervised Release Board was established, there was a budget that was light, significantly light, as when it got started. And so we've been, Becky and Assistant Commissioner Mitchell and others have been doing some work around what this could look like. And one of the things that has been discussed, at least for us to consider, is to changing some of the processes and looking at differences between hearings, going to one hearing a month, which will slow things down a little bit, and those sorts of things. But it would also call for perhaps looking at both more of a program review type of things. What are the things the person needs versus a more traditional release review? And there's a document that we can share, that was drafted around some of this. But part of this was an attempt to make our processes more efficient. At the same time, there are some areas that I'll admittedly, and I said this to Becky, that I have concerns, like, the statute pushes for that kind of the review that takes place 3 years prior to their eligibility. And one of the ways that, we could do some of this is by really doing that more as a paper type of review versus talking to them. The challenge with that is that you don't get to talk to them. And so you don't have that sense of being able to talk through today and then seeing them in 2 years or 3 years or whatever the board decides, and seeing the progress or talking about the progress, because you're looking at a document and then having a conversation versus documents, conversation, and being able to discuss the 3 years of transition. So I'll be honest, I'm a bit disinclined to advocate for that personally, and recognizing that we're going to need to find the money to do things as we have been doing it. But I want to make sure that there are things that you all value-wise, and I share that with Becky because she had been involved in working on the document, or if there are other things that you think are important.
I just want to put a little perspective around it. So if any of you have questions, you can let me know. Each time we have a meeting date, whether that's your prep day, your victim day, separate from your board review day, that's a cost. So if you, over the course of the fiscal year, if you conduct one hearing a month, 12 hearings, there will be some backlogs. You'll have to consider that when you start doing continuances. And so the impact of that workload can ebbs and flows depending on how many times you hold reviews. So on any given review day, I would be interested to know what your prep capacity is reasonable for you, and how many reviews we do in any given day as of like today. Like, is 5, I'm maxed out? Is 5 too many? Is every 2 weeks too often? So just kind of your feelings about how it's working for you, because, I can we can, if we go to 20 hearings a year versus 24 hearings, to 12 hearings a year, one a month, will that, is it still capped at 5 per month then on that one review date, or do you feel like you can do more? Those are the things that will help me to adjust and figure out cost and expenditures for the reviews. So I guess I'd be more inclined to say, so for your one prep day that you're allowed, or your one reimbursement for a prep for a board day, is your capacity sitting at 5? Or do you feel that's not much? Or do you feel that's way plenty? I'm trying to keep my own feelings about this out of the picture. And when you do a day like today, we try really hard to make the victim survivors the same day as the review day. That's a money thing. It's a money management thing. I think you all know that. So if we expanded the number of people reviewed on a day given like today, you're not going to be walking out of here at 5. So keep that in mind. Be interested in just kind of your thoughts around those things in general.
It depends on
You
how
want
your
feedback now?
reports.
Important question.
That's up to you guys. If you would rather
Important
send me an
questions.
email and say, this is what I'm thinking, that's fine too. But those are the kind of things I think about when I'm trying to manage money. It's like, if we do this many reviews, where are you at and how many? If you don't want to do a paper review, which would tend to be a little faster than a face-to-face review, that impacts length of time for hearings on any given day. So if on that initial view, do you want to do an initial review pre-eligibility date on paper only? I can pose those questions out to you if you'd like.
Is there any way to tighten the schedule? Because there's that lag time. There's about an hour and a half when we could put in an extra hearing if we had capacity to combine.
It would be only if victim services was willing to give a deadline to victim survivors.
I think
It's also a lunch break for you guys.
Yeah, they're waiting on these victim survivors to make their final decision about whether or not they want.
What did you say about the lunch break? I'm sorry.
It's also intended to give you guys a lunch break between, because we don't take a actual lunch break during the day.
I don't see people eating lunch during that.
I know.
break. You eat lunch during that time?
I have to. I don't have an option. So quickly, sometimes it's in the elevator on the way down. Sometimes.
Yeah, that's what breakfast bar on the way in.
So I don't know how many decisions you're looking for.
I mean, I think,
or if you have any other creative ideas about something you would like to.
I mean, I guess the thing I wanted to bring it up is just we're going to find, I'm obligated to find the money to do what we need to do. But I'm also interested in what the board feels like is best from the standpoint of process. We don't have to decide all of this today because it's just going to have to be, I'll have to deal with the money side of this even quicker because we're going to have to make, our budget goes into effect July 1. And so we have to be in a place where we either have identified the sources of the monies or, make the cuts. And this isn't that much compared to a lot of other things, but nonetheless, all of it matters and as we go forward. So if you have thoughts, I just want to share that with Becky or whatever, what that you think that it could look like by way of this, or what you think, you would lift up or philosophically appreciate about what we do or don't do around that. That would be helpful. And then, we'll just deal with it when we come back next time, talk a little bit about what some of the budget side of this is. And I just think it's just a spirit of transparency just around the cost related to this. And I think we went light when we put it together. And but nonetheless, I think we feel like we want to make sure we're supporting the work that's being done by the board, because I think it matters.
So am I hearing you say, Paul, that the schedule post July 1st is really up in the air as far as
I think
when and how many?
If we wanted to alter it at this stage, I mean, I think it's in place, but if we wanted to, if we were going to alter it, I think that's really a board decision if there was a feeling about.
And just keep in mind that notices for upcoming reviews are sent out typically 4 months in advance.
Mm-hmm.
So notices have already went out for September hearings.
And October.
So we'd have to change, we'd have to re-notice people if we were going to change it, number one. And remember, even things like, I had to be reminded of this many, many times by someone to my right. But, about when you set those, when we say we had 3 people today where, conceivably they could have 24-month reviews all at the same time that we set, which means that the people that are already in the pipeline in 24 months, this is now on top of it, on top of that. So the periods of continuance matter in the sense that we're stacking on top of cases that we already have in the pipeline. So,
I just have, and I would love to respond to an email questions, because then I can just be more thoughtful about that. But I was really struck by Matt's comment about this format, which he took to mean, or Eric's name, Eric, was it Eric, about being in person?
In person.
And he used the word dignity. And so just something about any process that gives that respect and dignity to the person. And then just an appreciation when you talk about how intimidating processes has been, and then the big audience. I don't know. So I'm just thinking about there's budget, and then there's how are people treated.
Do you think we're locked in on those cases from today, having an in-person hearing, or could we do a hybrid that would be having a paper review at the time that they would request a hearing, and do whatever we decide to do based on our recollection of what we expected during this time, and then not have to have an actual hearing with them before us?
I think, and we've done some of that where we've tried it, because I think it is another way where you set some expectations and you can make some decisions about, we would want to have victim input if it was going to be a parole decision, if, something
And
substantial.
That's where that's possible parole decision. You don't want to do a file review.
Yeah, on that. And so I think it's that if we wanted to check, like how are they doing against the things that we set, and what does folks feel like they still need to work on? A file review could be really appropriate there. But I think those are really good questions.
So for the 3 today, is the expectation that they will be involving victims again?
I think
That's the way it was laid out for me. Oh.
That the victims would be here?
that we would be doing more traditional hearing, hearing. If we're doing a public hearing, then the victims would have the opportunity to be in. Now, we've done file reviews, and we've said it's file reviews, and we did not. Our file reviews would still be public, and they would be discussed here. And that's also in the past, when it was just the commissioner and the advisory panel, it's one thing because nobody else is involved in that. Mm-hmm. And you would do the file review and have the conversation, and then we would communicate back to the person. Here it's tough because they don't get a chance to, be involved in that or hear it in the way, and yet the public does get the chance to hear it. It is a weird dynamic that's a little different.
And they don't get a chance to speak. I'm wondering if we could consider allowing them to do a 15-minute recorded presentation. They might not be comfortable with that, but it would be a chance for them to be heard if we were only going to.
And I think all of those things are options that we could
They can always
explore.
put something.
Put it in writing. It's
They
just, it
always
may
have
not
an
feel the same, but that's the challenge. I mean, and I think somebody like Eric Koskela, I mean, but what's strange for me that, I started to see him probably shortly after I got here. So it's been last 6.5 years. You start to, you get to, I'm sure you experience this, where you have that conversation repeatedly and you're checking in, and it's almost, you see the progress that they're making. And, I've seen him in the community at some of the lifer groups. When I've gone to those lifer groups, he's there. And so you're seeing a context that's a little different, that I think, that's the nice part about repeated conversations, is that you get a sense, and to be frank, there's a connection. And that connection is not just it's not like it's a friend connection, but what it is I think in some respects they feel a level of obligation to want to make sure that they're doing what we want them to do.
Live up to our
Exactly,
expectations.
100%.
Obligation both ways.
Both ways.
Both ways.
Yeah, they have my
Both
phone number and they call me.
I have a lot of lifers who call me, some that when they've been in trouble and
Even the pending violators that you'll be seeing, that are waiting to be seen, they call me. And they're back inside.
I like that.
So
But I like that about this work.
I appreciate that as well. I mean, sometimes it can be overwhelming and time consuming, but it's just, that support is there. Do you remember when we had one of them that got deported? He called after he was there. Really? To say how he was doing. And I thought that made me
He
feel.
didn't have to, right?
No, he didn't have to. I just wanted to call and tell you that I'm family and we're manning the farm and things wonderful. And it was, that part of it, because it's so unknown when it's a deportation.
It's nice.
And so after all that, it was fun.
And I think that those are the things that, I look forward to when you all as board members get the chance to start to see people that second time. Because then it is a different it can be a different conversation, because they feel like, you were involved or a participant in that progress, in their progress, and that kind of stuff. So I think just budget wise, just know that, whatever thoughts you have, and then we can report that back, but we'll deal with that on the economic side. We want to make sure what we're doing is making good sense and is something that is realistic for all of you as well. And yet recognize that it's not a full-time job either. And so that's a big part of it. The second thing I just wanted to say by way of new business is that, we, and I'm not sure the best way to handle this with all of you, but for instance, we had a case that the board saw in March, and moved out to minimum, and there was no victim involvement in that case. We victim services had sent the letter out. Letter came back, made multiple phone calls, didn't get a response, sent emails, did not get a response. And, the board made some movements in that case to move that person out to a minimum. And lo and behold, the family did receive the email, but did not look at it, or doesn't look at their email very often. And then expressed grave concern about the fact that the person is now at a minimum, and their opportunity to give voice to that was not there. And so, I assured them that I would talk with the board. But I also said that it's really difficult to, card laid is a card played at some level, that, we have put in motion a plan, and there's expectations around that. And should they not live up to what those expectations are, it'd be brought back in like anybody else. But it's one of the things that can come up. and especially in these cases where victims did not get the chance to participate and they become aware, or all of a sudden victim services finds them or whatever, they find each other. In that particular case, we had talked about, I told that person, that the father of the victim, that I would circle back with him next week. But, it may be a situation where if you're all comfortable, I might offer the opportunity to at least have a chance to chat with the board about their sense and what this impact was and those sorts of things, even while it may not change, the placement outcome, which is already in motion. I just wanted you to be aware, and these things come up fairly regularly, and so we'll try and make sure you're aware of it as we go forward. But just wanted to make you aware. We have one action item here, and that would be a motion to approve the May 13th, 2025 meeting minutes. And that would need to be one of the members who was present. So on this one, so is there a motion to approve the minutes as prepared and submitted? Andrew, are you making that motion?
Yes.
Okay. And is there a second?
Second.
All right. A motion and a second. And all in favor of approving that, we'll do signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. Anybody signed up for public comment? None. Okay. The next meeting of the board is June 24th, 11:15 here at the DOC. And with that, I would entertain a motion for adjournment. And a second?
Second.
And we're adjourned.
On June 24th, I wrote down that we have a 9 a.m.
Minutes from the
Do you have that?
because we didn't.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we can.
Yeah. So that we'll correct that in the record. It's just the 23rd. Did I say 13?
Oh, we wrote 13 on your agenda.
Yeah, I realized I didn't
notes
change the
do
date
say
on the
the
agenda
23rd.
first.
Yeah. So it's just
Sorry.
not.
It was the 23rd.
Matt, we need this phone number and the website.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. That's why he had stepped back in. So, yep.
Yeah.
Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3. I have gooseneck number 1, gooseneck number 2, and gooseneck number 3, and none of them are powering on. Aubrey has already put the other 3 away, and they do turn on now when I pull them out, so they've got a little bit. So yes, handheld working. Let me try the lav. Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3. This is the lav mic. I can hear it in room. I could also hear handheld in room.